I had the very fortunate journey of starting a business called Pureprofile that allowed me to ask huge amounts of questions, and from the beginning was very holistic. So I didn't ask questions about one particular topic. I got the opportunity to see a holistic profile come together, and more importantly, I got to work with many different researchers and businesses and brands, and realized that the common denominator was always some type of improvement in a wellness dimension. So it didn't matter whether you're selling insurance or you're selling finance or you're selling cars, there was always some improvement to the end user, to their wellness dimension. And all the money foundationally still comes from that, that individual consumer, or a business selling to a business that sells to a consumer. And so a lot of the, what you would maybe traditionally think as B2B companies have transformed into environmental companies. Even the large energy companies are now focused on the environment. We'll probably do more for the environment in terms of improving it than the damage they've done. And in addition to that, I think the really big core insight that I saw was incredible questions, incredible insights that businesses could get from talking to very large groups of people. Incredible, eye-opening, surprising research that a business could be presented with in a PowerPoint, and then it would never enter its way into the operating system. And if it did, it was in a very small way. So I always thought that the logic that drove decisions was, at some point in an organization that's established, conditional. And so what is a good result, what is an average result, was completely decided, but then could be locked in. And so you could build a dashboard around everything. You could have traffic lights for everything. And what seems like qualitative information could quickly be turned into quantitative as soon as you asked enough people, or as soon as you were comfortable to say, this is what is, anything above this is good, anything between this is kind of okay, and anything below this is really bad. And you realized as you went through every department and every type of survey you could imagine, everybody was really just trying to work out that, what I would call wisdom. So what is good and what is bad for my particular organization. So the early ideas formed then, but I had to leave Pureprofile and really walk that, that discovery path, that exploration path. Really do nothing else except start with a blank canvas every day and combine those concepts, those thoughts, and add those to, let's say, the founding aspiration of Decidr, which was everything foundationally comes from the decisions you make, and choosing the right decision is making sure that the search space or the set of choices that you work with, there is enough effort and energy that goes into those choices. And so if you want to think about searching the information of the world, Google made that really easy, and you can kind of search for anything. And then you think about what powers Google truly. It's millions of people who are following and effectively working for Google and setting up their websites so that they can be crawled and that Google can hopefully rank them really highly. And that really dawned on me because I really love the idea of both the positives and the negatives of that. But I really thought very early on, and I made a video in 2005 called Reversing the Search. And I thought there always could be a better way. And the better way was if you were to take control of your information, and that information was available to be used as the filters of, let's call it a large table, and all of the choices you ever made could be one of the rows in those tables, then you could build an impressive and life-changing or destiny-changing scenario or set of scenarios. And in addition to that, I had a very I did a very holistic degree in what was called land economics at the time, and I think it's called property economics now at UTS, which went into every one of the different disciplines. And the discipline that I think I really picked up on, and I really haven't seen in many other industries, and I've had the chance to work through quite a lot of different projects with pretty much every industry you can imagine, is the ability to predict and project out. And property does that really well. And it's probably because everybody can quickly work out what the price of the apartments are across the road, and you can kind of do a quick, what they call back of the envelope. And you would always be incredibly amazed at a very, let's say, good developer who could do a back of the envelope and be within 10 or 15% of a 1,000-line projection model. But the 1,000-line projection model was the thing that got them funding and the thing that enabled the precision to be achieved, because every one of those projections into the future was effectively a target. And so I thought if I could combine the ability to have a large single view database, extend every data object and move it to incorporate conditional logic wisdom. And so you could buy an operating system that had out of the box for your product category everything that made a traffic light dashboard the game of business. And so you'd want to try and move everything into green. If you're a startup, most things start in red or orange, and the goal is to get them into green as quickly as you can. And so ultimately, when it comes down to something like thinking about what happened with AI, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I thought the best way to get people to embrace a holistic operating system was to use not just questions and answers, but types of natural language where you would feel that you were engaging and building out the personas of each one of the individual roles. And the conditional logic would do a huge amount of what ordinary managers would do. So instead of needing a middle layer, you could focus on what put the real value into the world, which was the specialized resource. And you could focus on scaling that out with beautiful dashboards and, let's call it, AI to help populate certain data that got quite large, and you needed summarized so that it could fit and trigger one of the red, green or orange lights on your dashboard. And so when the first LLMs started to come through, I was super fascinated because I was more interested in finding ways to write questions dynamically using natural language, given that we built an extremely large, let's call it operating system architecture, which is very much the foundations of Decidr. But what I quickly realized was I could actually give them the logical reasoning tasks of looking at information, similar to what a manager do, and in some cases a lot of specialists, and actually input that information. And what became more exciting to me was the inhuman tasks of looking at data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, looking at data based on triggers, setting up all of those triggers, making sure there's a very clear set of longer term aspirations. Most businesses just don't invest the time to build out that type of model. And you could, with Decidr, buy one off the shelf and not just buy the model and not just buy the software, and not just buy the single view database, but you could buy the whole team of highly trained specialists that were focused task by task, literally one field at a time. And exactly the same way that I spent countless thousands of hours designing user experiences for people and making sure that they're as seamless and frictionless as possible, I could actually increase all of the information that I provided to make, let's call it to remove all hallucination and to make sure that the answers were, let's say, precise and constantly improved over time. And that realization, which happened about 18 months ago, after a fair bit of testing and coming back to that journey of an entrepreneur and coming back to the way in which you start to build a higher fidelity for this vision that you have, I realized we could deliver a whole operating system and we could take away huge numbers of, let's call it, not value capturing roles, but roles that were normally associated as pure cost centers, and you could realign an organization around the value that it puts into the world.